Hello and welcome back in another Power Pack session. This is a Fireside chat where I'm going to discuss building contactless banking. And I have with me Mr. Deepak Sharma, the President and CEO of Kotak Mahindra Bank. Deepak, glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks Amol for inviting me over. Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. And uh, the contactless, that word was there with the banking industry since maybe 5 to 7 years, but in last 2 years, the banking became contactless, in many segments. And that's why this term now contactless banking has emerged like a new baby in this sector, and everybody is adopting it far more aggressively, significantly. Uh, the Kotak has already done enough innovations in the banking space. 811, 811 is a remarkable positioning that the Kotak Mahindra Bank has done. Specifically talking about contactless banking, Deepak, I would like you to tell us, maybe some perspective here. So many segments have already been gone on digital, like payments. Many mundane operations have already gone contactless. What kind of difference this segment, which have gone contactless, added in the whole, banking structure for you, or how has it, benefited you as a bank?
No, I think great question, Amol. I think while we all started our digital journeys many, many years ago, we have started to see a lot of those getting more mature because there were places where we were ready, but customers were not. And then there are areas customers wanted us to be fully digital and we were not. And I think last 2 years, if you ask me, in pandemic, the whole journey transformation got even more accelerated than what it did before 2020. For example, the whole customer onboarding, when you sign up for a new bank account or a credit card or a loan, any financial product, most of the journeys earlier were mostly physical, or some part was physical, some was digital. But thanks to Aadhaar and based authentication and then video KYC that came during pandemic, I think the whole customer journey to sign up for a financial product became contactless, paperless, almost near real time. Same thing started to happen with transactions. Initially, what started largely as fund transfer, thanks to the UPI movement, and then thereafter paying your utility bills or doing a tap and pay in a retail store. I think all kind of transactions today, largely the financial transactions, have moved digital. In fact, if you see, even ATM usage has been rather stagnant or it has declined. So I think people have picked up transaction fully digital. The third part I would call is around the service piece. Because if you had an issue earlier, you used to walk into a branch or you used to call a contact center. These were the two channels which customers used to go after. Thanks to channels like WhatsApp-based banking or our conversational banking bot, Kia, or building all these service journeys within mobile app or website. Today, most of the services and journeys gets handled in the app or on the website or through a conversational bot or a messaging application. So the whole service piece is also largely moved contactless. And I think the way we are looking at it today, whatever has not moved fully or customers who are still on the fringe, I think pandemic accelerated that. So today, as I speak, 97% of all my retail consumers, they do their transactions outside the branch or in the physical ambit. So that has been a big shift. That I would say the data is the evidence of how customers have adopted, and contactless has become the way to bank.
Okay, absolutely agree with you. But Deepak, I would really like to understand now whether it is actually adding a business value to the banks, and if yes, in what terms? Obviously, the number of customer acquisition is huge. The number of footfalls on digital is huge. It's obviously data is there, but in terms of business value, how is it actually creating a business value for a bank? Because now it's a relatively decent time to find out whether the customers are actually building a business value for you.
So let's understand this in two dimensions. And when you talk of business value, there is a growth in number of digital transactions overall. That means the cost to serve customers is only going to increase, because customers, if they used to probably do 4 transactions, if they are doing 8 transactions, or probably if they were doing X number of products, they take more products. So there is a higher engagement across transactions service that has started to happen for most customers. Uh, Second is we are growing our customer base exponentially. So as we grow more customers and customers do more with us, it has its impact on overall cost to acquire and cost to serve. When we build these channels, I think one of the things that we create is we try to bring the cost to serve and cost to acquire in a reasonable limit. Otherwise, a lot of these business models may not be sustainable over a period of time, because you keep spending on technology, on people, on branches, or contact center. I mean, there has to be a right balance between how much of each of this will give us an ROI, and thereby make sure we have an optimum mix of all these things to serve customers well. I think contactless is helping us achieve that goal directionally. We still have a way to go, because just think of it, if you just keep adding more customers, can you keep adding more and more call center seats? It's just not possible, right? So I think there are clearly priorities of ensuring that customer requests or information or any kind of customer complaints can be handled seamless and fast enough, but through contactless channels. And that's where likes of bots became very, very important, because today a bot has almost for us more than 100,000 different information. Just think of it, no human being can remember all of these. So even if you call someone, the person will have to refer to some note or some information, but a bot can answer all of those things with reasonable accuracy. For us, that accuracy is today in the range of 93 to 95%. So I think it's just not a question of trying to reduce the cost, but it's also about improving efficiency, accuracy, customer engagement. And I think all of that at the end of it creates a sticky customer for the bank. So I would look at this as a very strategic to what we are doing, and it's just not a good to do thing.
Okay. Very well said. And in fact, accuracy, which is more than 90%, 90 to 93% is a remarkable one. In fact, I think we have achieved a lot, I must say, in this aspect. So now my question is in two parts, Deepak. One is obviously there is a lot of digitalization for the contactless happening specifically on the new account openings, on payment side. But what about the hardcore service when the customer is actually facing the challenge? Do you want to say that your aim is to also make 100% contactless even the service department? Obviously, I understand 90 to 93% of accuracy there. Doing that, how difficult will it be? Because there are people specifically into tier 3, tier 4 cities prefer to go to bank, ask the branch manager what is wrong with the problems and all. So how actually are you going to deal with the whole customer service department, customer care department, not on the issuance side, on the complaint side, on the grievance side, in a contactless manner?
No, I think, so let's break it into two. All the service requests that a customer has, a large part of that we have built now what we call STP, straight through processing. That means there is no form to be filled. There is no wet signature required. There is no one to verify the documents and then someone to punch that request in the system. It doesn't happen. Today, as I speak, more than 70% of all my requests from customers gets processed real time digitally, irrespective of whether you come to a digital channel or you go to a branch or you go call a call center. Because these are different front end, but at the end of it, even you go to a branch, you don't need to fill up a form for most of our requests. You can authenticate using a biometric or OTP, and then that is straight through process which gets into the system. So I think all of this we have seen delighting customer, apart from obviously being more efficient in terms of paper and courier and scanning and stuff that used to get associated. Complaints or issues is still, I would say, something that we need to solve well. It's not that some part of it has got resolved, but obviously that's an area which still requires some human touch. So I won't say that that's something that has got fully solved, but that's, I think, a work in progress for all of us. Because as we understand customers better, either when they go to a social media and they post a negative tweet, or they write a comment, or they go to an app store or a play store and put a comment, I think some of those we are able to address in a very, very short span of time. In fact, our turnaround time for social media handling is less than 15 minutes, which is, I think, so some of those we are really becoming more mature. But then obviously ensuring that customers know which channels they can use for contactless raising of an issue or a complaint. It's also something which requires more awareness, education, hand-holding. And as customers start to see that, yes, things do get addressed and it gets addressed fast, I think the trust increases. For example, reporting a lost card. It used to be one of the problems, right? You're panicked when you lose a card. You just want the card to get blocked because card should not get misused. And default customers always used to scramble to find a call center number, because now you lost a card, you need to call contact center. And at times you may not know the contact center number easily if you're not saved on your phone. But now all these features are built in the app. So if you have your phone, even if you lost a card, you can just go and block the card immediately and it gets done. So I think a lot of such things which creates anxiety for customer or angst for customer, I think we've started to solve it digitally end to end. But yeah, there are other processes which may require some amount of detailing. For example, if there's a late payment charge, or probably you're disputing a transaction. Some of this will still require interaction, even though interaction can happen over a call or through a video RM. So you can't completely say that we don't need human. I think you need human, but with superior technology to handle.
Well, true. Valid points. I think meaningful one, Deepak. So on the product side, payment is a remarkable story, specifically when you talk about digital, right? What about the credit? I have seen the rise in the BNPL. I have seen the rise in the personal loan segment specifically. The digital usage is really high there. How far contactless can go in a credit? Because it has completely revolutionized the payment, and it is almost 100%. Do you also see contactless banking can go 100% in credit going ahead?
So contactless for origination and underwriting and dispersal. In my mind, if you look at that part of the credit journey, it is already moving contactless to larger extent, especially in the personal loan, credit card, and consumer durable loan. Still not towards a considered purchase like a home loan or a working capital loan. So depending on which lending product, but obviously the retail lending products that we all look at, they are largely moving contactless, because the whole KYC norms now is pretty much digital, be it the e-sign or e-agreements or whole Aadhaar KYC stack. So you're able to pretty much ascertain, and then customer with a bureau or with the data that gives us comfort on underwriting, and thereby you can completely process the case end-to-end contactless. And today we are seeing a lot of these embedded finance happening, right? So be it when you go and shop on, say, Amazon or a Flipkart or any other e-commerce site, you will see a pre-approved loan there, buy now, pay later. And that's where, as banks at Kotak, we have started extending these APIs to integrate at different places of consumption where customers are making a purchase decision or completing a payment, and credit has to be embedded. The other big change we are seeing is now the advent of account aggregator and OCN, which is the Open Credit Network, because that is going to democratize the access of data and information between the consumer or the business person who wants to borrow versus the lenders who are ready to lend, and that too in real time. So just like what UPI did to payments, I think this is what is going to do for lending. And some of these, I would say, is going to be transformational in building this whole at-scale lending through these platforms. The only thing I would still caution, we need to think hard, and we don't have a solution yet fully, is the collections. Because while we have e-Nash and we have auto debits and whatever you do. When customer goes bad, how do you still handle that? Uh, and I think that's where, while we have put stuff like collection bots and auto reminders and more of data, but you still need some amount of physical touch or contact. So 85%, I would say, of the journeys are getting fully contactless. But yeah, no, when delinquencies hit, then you need to find ways to still get your money back.
Okay. Well said, Deepak. Let me shoot one negative question. We have been, I have been hearing, and all the BFSI companies are talking about the great advantages of the contactless world. By any chance, do you recall any negative aspects, any cons of the contactless world that you think this can be the disadvantages of the contactless banking?
See, anything to do with contactless leaves a lot for customer to discover and complete, right? So because, and in a market, in a country like India, not everyone is still digital native or digitally mature enough. So there are different customer segments and cohorts. A lot of them will require hand-holding, be it from technology standpoint or how to use or how to address if they have grievances. So I think that's a journey in motion, I would say, because there are different segments or subsegments that we cater to. The second thing, in India also we have a challenge and which we are solving in some way, but it will take time, is the whole multilingual. And we use, or we are more comfortable talking rather than typing. So how do we build the kind of user interface which are more conversational, more suited to multilingual? Because I and you can talk in a language of our choice. Technology also has to understand all those languages that customers use. So I think traversing through that, some amount, I would not call it as a risk. I think it's also being more cautious about the kind of fraud or risk or impersonation that may come through. I think we are spending a lot of time and effort addressing that part. But as we go more and more in this direction, I think it's important for us to balance the whole security risk framework along with the convenience and innovation that we are building.
Okay. Noted your points, Deepak, very well said. And my last question is about, since you're actually thinking about the theme called BFSI 2025, hyper-connected world, hyper-personalization, a lot of themes are emerging because the banks have been adopting different segments. They're partnering with big techs, fintechs, deep techs, and startups, and opening their APIs far more aggressively. Every bank has almost 40 to 50 APIs today. Considering all these changes, developments in the banking industry, Deepak, what is your visualization? How do you see the banking or the future of banking maybe in next 4 to 5 years or 2025? How do you see the banks? Do you see it's absolutely contactless, branchless?
No, as I said, India is one country, but we have many different customer segments, and they are at a very, very different level of maturity. And I think each of those are moving forward in digital space, but at different paces. So there are customers who are extremely comfortable with mobile and apps and doing everything themselves. At the same time, you have customers who need help or assistance in doing some of those transactions. That's why a country continues to grow even on Aadhaar-enabled payment system. At the same time, UPI and RTGS. Right? So that is the evidence of how, as a country, we are progressing. Financial services will continue, and bank like ours will continue to evolve around where customers are. And that means we'll have to build, and we are building different ways and means of connecting with digital native customer versus digital immigrant customers, what we call. Be it in terms of product, be it in terms of choice of channel, be it in terms of services. And I think a lot of this will continue to be, banks, in my mind, will be more like consumer tech firms. And that has already started to happen. While I think what you are seeing is banks work with fintechs and big techs, yes, they do. But they're also learning a lot when they work with them. And they try to bring that change back into the way they operate and they run. And I think that is a big shift we are seeing across financial service industry. Whereas banks become more and more agile, more nimble, more customer-centered, I think banks will start looking more and more like tech firm with trust and regulation. And be it through open banking or connected banking platforms or exposing APIs, they are playing a much significant role in creating and orchestrating ecosystems where customers get benefited and banks have a larger play in customers' day-to-day life. So as we evolve more as a consumer tech firm, I think you will see many more use cases that banks will offer customers beyond just a loan or a deposit or an investment. And I think that's largely the play where data aggregation, telling you how much you should spend, what you should do with your money, I think all that will get redefined. So yeah, I think that's where I see banks heading in probably next 2 to 3 years, and a lot of that is already happening as we speak.
Uh, okay, meaningful one, Deepak. I think it's always pleasure talking to you, pleasure listening to you, and try to understand a different perspective from you. Thank you so much, Deepak, for sharing your inputs at this session.
Pleasure, Amol. Thanks. It was nice talking to you again.